All right, we're back. We have some special guests to talk all about DevOps. I'm super excited because, I feel like this is the cool new phase of being a good developer is doing DevOps. So why don't you introduce yourselves, tell us who you are and what you do. We'll start here.
My name's Lori Lampkin. I'm the Director of Program Management for Visual Studio Team Services and Team Foundation Server.
Fantastic.
And I'm Donovan Brown. I'm a Principal Program Manager. I own the DevOps vision on top of Team Foundation Server and Visual Studio Team Services.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Visual Studio Team Services. Why should people look at it? And by the way, we have, they're here. I'm going to ask questions, but I'd rather ask your questions. So if you have any questions, please submit them to #VS2017, and I will pull them off and get them. So let's start with, why should we be looking at Visual Studio Team Services?
I think the reason why is because it's everything that you need to turn an idea into a working piece of software. Mm-hmm. It's your work item tracking, Kanban boards, delivery plans, bug tracking, test case management, source control, automated build, automatic deployment, and even your package management. It's everything that you need. And we can do this for any language, targeting any platform. And that's what people need to make sure that they understand. It's not just for .NET, it's for Java and Node.js and Python and PHP and you name a language. And we don't care if you're going to mobile or you're going to Docker or you're going to
Linux,
Azure or on-prem. It does not matter. So that's why you need to be
Fantastic.
looking
What
at
do you say?
Well, I say that, the way we've seen it is it's been a set of tools that it's helped us enable our teams to collaborate better and us to deliver value to our customers even faster. And we watch people adopt the tools and adopt new practices and really be able to stay up to date, meeting the needs of their own customers. And so I couldn't live without it.
Fantastic. So maybe I should have taken a step back and
Yeah.
maybe had you explain what is DevOps. And then once we know what DevOps is, we can see how VSTS helps in each of those phases of DevOps. I want to start with you, Donovan.
Yeah, I was asked to define it when I joined the team, which was a daunting task because there's such an amazing organization. But when you distilled it all down, we came up with DevOps is the union of people, process, and product to enable the continuous delivery of value to our end users. And she used that just a moment ago. We said it helped us to deliver value more regularly. And that's what everyone's trying to do when they write software, is to continuously deliver value to your end users. And with VSTS, we make it really, really easy to do.
Fantastic. What about you? What do you think?
Well, it's hard to argue with the expert here. He really knows this DevOps stuff. Yeah, no, but I think that is, the world has been just operating faster and faster, and people have more and more expectations, and how do we as developers keep up? And this was kind of first moving to Agile and then talking about continuous integration and continuous delivery and using data from production and having your whole team collaborate has just been, no more throwing things over the wall has really been the answer to that problem.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's just say I'm building a new application. What are some things that developers traditionally did not think about when it comes to DevOps that they should be thinking about, number one? And number two, how does VSTS help with that? Because I'm a programmer. I wrote production code a long time ago, and I wrote this thing and I built an installer and then I said here.
Right.
It's different now.
Yes.
And tell us how it's different and how VSTS can help us.
One of the things that you said is what should they be thinking about? They should be thinking about production on day one. Right? How do we get this code from, I always like to say, from the fingertips of my developers into the hands of my users? How do I get that on day one? Too many of us worry about writing the code and not how we're going to deliver that code until we have the code written.
Yeah.
And by then we now have these hurdles we have to now jump. When you should have been able to get whatever modicum of code you wrote to production instantly. Get that highway to production laid first, and then just start laying over feature, value over value. Don't leave that, how do I get this deployed, as the last thing that you do. Start considering that as a much earlier in your pipeline.
I think the role of the developer has changed a lot over time, where it was just, hey, I focus on writing the code and other people are taking care of everything else. And then we saw it first with testing, and it was like more and more accountability for developers for the quality of the code. And now it's, production as well. Everybody is working on things that deploy into the cloud, and boy, you got to make sure that that goes well, and you've got to, that's a lot of responsibility for a developer. So what Team Services is doing is trying to make that really easy, so they don't have to be thinking about all these things. It just comes naturally as part of their workflow to make sure that it's quality and make sure it goes cleanly into production and make sure the data from production comes in so that they can work on the most important thing that morning, not, hey, I know exactly what I need to do.
Let's get into the nitty gritty of the kinds of environments. We work in really heterogeneous environments. I mean, when we talk about code, it used to be I wrote all my code in X, and now X goes to Y, and then it's only ever Y. Let's talk a little bit about the heterogeneous environments that exist, and then what VSTS can support. For example, if I'm a .NET programmer, can I do .NET? Can I do .NET with Docker? Can I do Linux type stuff? Can I do iOS type stuff? Why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Well, that's just too easy.
The answer is yes.
No, I mean,
We do everything. Okay,
yes.
next question.
It's nice.
Next question.
What does it look like? It feels a little too magical to me.
You know, that's funny. I remember once I did a demo, and one of the guys says, "What's the catch?"
Yes.
I said, "What do you mean, what's the catch?" It says, "There's no way it's that easy." I'm
He's
like,
my
not only is
spirit
it that,
animal.
not only is it that easy, it's that easy for any language you want to do it with. It literally is that easy. I wish, I've been writing software for 20 years. I wish I had this 20 years ago.
Were you
right?
5 when you started?
I'm much older than I look.
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know what lotion you're using, but let me know because you look great.
That's
Yeah,
coming
but
up at the break.
we've made it so much easier to do all this amazing stuff. And you were asking, like, can I do it with .NET? Can I do it with Java? Literally, the answer is any language, any platform. I literally had this challenge out on Twitter once, like, give me a language and give me a platform. And the challenge came back with VB6. I have a blog post that tells you how to do everything that we do using VB6, right? So I don't care.
Someone tried to troll you, and you're like, "Yes, it works."
I wrote a blog post. I was like, I'll prove it to you right now. And I used all of VSTS to actually build and deploy a VB6 application. So any language, any platform.
That's awesome. So here is a question from a student. Luke Hammer says, "I'm a new solo developer for a small university. How is the best way? What is the best way to learn to do CI using TFS on site?"
What's the best way to learn CI?
Yeah.
Well, all you need to do is just have your code inside Visual Studio Team Services, and what we do is some new things we do is as part of just the natural flow, you just press a button and we'll set up the CI system for you. So it really is that simple where, you know, we'll set up the basic tasks that need to be done as a part of your build, and you can add and modify that, but it's all just part of, you know, it's just pressing a button, so yeah.
Are we dog fooding this stuff? I mean, are we building VSTS using VSTS Inception-like?
And we also deploy it with itself every 3 weeks, which is always funny to me. I'm like, so we use our tool to deploy itself. It's like this weird, it's like, I guess it's like a mind meld kind of thing, like chicken and egg, but it's amazing.
It better not be just one button, because then this is going to be the boringest interview I've ever done in my life.
Well, getting started is easy, and that's what we're, you know, I think that's what we're talking about. But as you have more complex deployments like VSTS, we have a lot of customization we've done, and that's why, you know, our release management system is extremely powerful and extremely scalable. And using it ourselves, and many teams at Microsoft using it themselves, helps make sure we can fulfill that enterprise scale promise.
Fantastic.
Back to the gentleman's question real quick. Just go to your repo right now. There's going to be a little button up there that says Set Up CI. Just click that button. That's the button that Lori's telling you about. And there's templates in the box for .NET and Java and Node.js and Xamarin and Xcode. And I mean, we've tried to figure out what are the most popular builds people want to do, and we already have the build definition for you. So it's literally you click a button and then you click on Save and it'll run.
Yeah.
What about it? Like, I'm imagining there's the new kinds of applications nowadays. Let's just say I'm building the new super hyper cool social media site that needs to be done via microservices and Docker, and like I want to throw like the most what is the most complicated thing you've seen built using the TFS sort of pipeline?
VSTS probably.
I just figured that out, right? I mean, is that like a huge conglomerate of services, or?
There's 39 feature teams that come together?
That's right. 39 feature teams, about 1,000 people based in India, North Carolina, Redmond, and of course lots of individuals distributed in different places. We have broken it down into several small services and a couple, like we have the TFS service, which is a big, you know, much bigger service that over time we'd like to work on our architecture to make it even more finer grained, but you know, we all live with the code base that we have and make it better over time. So some of the microservices can be deployed independently. We tend to coordinate our deployments because it's easier for customers to consume the new set of changes that we've made on a 3-week basis versus every day there's something new.
All right. One thing you mentioned, like a sub question, is like, what's the hardest thing that you've seen?
Yeah.
I think mobile DevOps is the most difficult pipeline to
Yeah.
build. And because you have the device proliferation, the development alone is difficult, the distribution of your application is difficult, and then basically being able to deploy that and monitor that is so unique when it comes to mobile. I think that's hands down the most difficult pipeline to build. unless you're using our tools.
Sure.
Because we offer literally everything that you need. We're the only vendor on the planet that has from beginning to end an entire mobile DevOps pipeline for you, because we have Xamarin and we have the Test Cloud and we also have Hockey app and we have team services, and literally everything that you need can literally just be a push of a button. And with the mobile center coming out, we're just making it easier and easier to do, even though that's the hardest one I believe that there is to do.
Now, I remember a couple years ago, I saw Brian Harry, he said, yeah, we release every 3 weeks. And I'm just like, that's a lot of cat herding. How does that, are you using VSTS to do all that cat herding, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, we didn't start there. We used to be on a 3-year cadence with the Visual
That's quite
Studio.
a difference, I mean, time-wise.
It took
3 year to 3
It was a journey, and I think a lot of our stories are on the visualstudio.com website about the changes that we had to make to our schedule, to our branching, to our release coordination. But yes, we use our tools, our work item tracking and agile planning tools to help with that planning and coordination. We use our Git tools to make sure that we don't build up any integration debt between all these teams coming together. And like Donovan's been saying, we use our release management tools to actually get it built and get it out the door. Yeah.
So
we actually release more than every 3 weeks, right? I mean, we actually have some deployments that go out every day, right? So, and a lot of people need to understand that you don't get there, like you said, right away, right? To the point to where you go from 3 years to being able to deploy multiple times a day. That is an enormous journey that you take. But when you get there, it's amazing. I have some private stuff. I deployed twice already this morning before I got here, right? It's like, Donovan, could you change this? Sure, no problem. Push a button, approved it, and it went into production. And I was like, this is just what we do now.
Yeah, that's a larger team sort of transition. I think smaller teams have the luxury of being able to get on these trends a lot faster.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's burn through some questions that people are asking. Jason asks, why use VSTS over on-prem TFS?
Well, you get the latest updates right there fresh. What we do is, as Donovan was saying, ship the value every 3 weeks, and then we package it up and put it into an on-premises installation. It's the same code base, but you're going to get something fresh. I think the other answer is you don't have to install anything.
That's my favorite one right there.
I mean, that's life-changing, where you don't have to do the upgrade. You just go and sign in the next day, and it works.
I remember, and this was years ago, they were like, we are going to be updating TFS. And everyone was like, oh, we get to have a week off.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's not
I guess that's the bad
No,
reason.
thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. It's not like that anymore for on-prem, right? Tell us about that.
No, the upgrade even on-prem is much easier than it used to be. I was a process consultant. It literally was my job to It used to be so difficult. You could have a company who did nothing but that. Now, that's simply run the installer. It'll upgrade everything for you. But to Lori's point, why VSTS over TFS? It is everything that you know and love about TFS with none of the maintenance. There's no installs, there's no backups, there's no upgrades, there's nothing. And you have global reach now because it's hosted for you in Azure. So no, I will never go back.
Yeah.
I love TFS, don't get me wrong, it's a powerful tool and we're going to keep supporting it, but once you never have to back it up or restore it again or anything, it's just like, why would I ever do that again?
Awesome. Another question from LB Mouse. Have there been any improvements to Git integration?
Sure, we did a lot of stuff with Git this time around. I think if you look at our pull request pages, you'll see that they're kind of like, that's where developers live all the time in Git, and it's a very social experience. It's very much where you can really iterate and interact with your peers and people reviewing your code, and you can see, comments and assigning things to teams and lots of different policies and all that sort of stuff. So we've done that. I think a couple of weeks ago we just announced our large file support for Git. That was a big announcement at Git Merge that we did. That really is an industry innovation in how we can get Git to scale for teams that just are looking at managing a lot of things in a single repo or managing large files as part of a repo. So we've been doing stuff there, and then we've kind of cleaned up the whole initial experience to import your code into Git and have it working. And so we are constantly out on user voice, updating things, and shipping more and more improvements in our Git support all the time.
Fantastic. Another question from Michael Steenson. I hope I said that right. Have there been any updates to the code review feature of TFS? What is code review? Tell me about that.
Code review was a feature that we put on top of TFVC, which is our centralized version control. It's built inside of the IDE. So it's very similar to a pull request for centralized version control. And I think that's why a lot of people saw us, they almost felt like we were avoiding the Visual Studio Team Services version control. We weren't. We were basically trying to bring parity to Git so it had the same features. So I don't know, have there been any recent improvements on that?
No, not really. We haven't done a lot of improvements in code review for centralized TFVC, not at this time.
Awesome. So let's talk about the experience, because there's a question here that was interesting. It says Team Foundation services are free for teams up to 5 users. How does that compare to what's included for free build, CI/CD, hosting? What can you get for up to 5 users for free?
You can get your team if you have a team under 5 people, you can do everything for free on Visual Studio Team Services. So that means I can do some planning, I can create builds, I can run my builds in the cloud, I can perform releases in the clouds, I can share code through package management. The whole system is available for you to do that in your private repos for free. And then as your team grows, we try to make it very economical for you to add users over time.
And as your team grows, what's interesting, a lot of people don't realize, is that if you already have an enterprise subscription or you have an MSDN, it's free for those people too. So if you already have an MSDN, you still get 5 more buddies. If any of your buddies already have MSDN, they don't count against your 5 users that you get for free. So you could have 35 people on your team because 30 of them already have MSDNs and those other 5 people don't, and you still have that team absolutely for free. There's no additional cost for it at all. So when we say you get started for free, we mean it. There's no hidden cost there.
I love the number 5 too, because like usually, like with 2 programmers, you can get a lot done. And then if you have a tester and a process manager, and I mean, it's just like 5 is a really good number if you want to build something great
Real.
now.
Right. What's interesting too is you mentioned the other roles there. So if you just have a stakeholder, they're not going to count against you at all.
That's
Right? So
right.
you could literally have 5 stakeholders in a project that you and 5 of your buddies are using. They can have access to your VSTS without counting against the 5 licenses that you get for free for
Yeah.
the developers themselves. So that is 5 developers, not 5 team members. You can actually have a larger team for free.
Fantastic. So I want to ask this question, because I always ask this when someone tells me something that feels super amazing, when it's a product or a service, I always ask, how do you break down the things that are available inside of this product or service? Because I know you can save your code in there. I know you can do CI/CD. What other areas are there that maybe people don't know about, or how would you sort of summarize what you can do with VSTS? I know you can say everything, but I feel like that's really nice. But
You need bullet points.
Yeah, I want some bullet point. Like if
Yeah.
I was looking at a slide, what would be like the 3 to 5 to 1,000 things it sounds like it can
Yeah.
do? But how would you summarize the
Yeah,
top
so think
things?
about the life cycle. You start with planning, and we have planning tools, so Kanban boards and backlogs and and now the new delivery plans would help you look at things across a whole set of teams and not just single team views. So we got planning tools. Then we have tools to share your code, and so that includes our Git support, our centralized version control support, and everything you need for that. So branching and history and pull requests and code review and all of that to make you very productive, where you spend a ton of your time.
Sure.
And then all of the stuff that automates that throughout, the test tools, and plugging into the continuous integration and continuous delivery system. All of that is part of Visual Studio Team Services. And then package management is I should have included that really in the code section, because that's, hey, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to use other people's IP, as part of from the open source or from within my own organization. And so we have that as well.
Fantastic. So
Yeah.
I mean, you literally just said, well, Seth, how do you code? Well, you plan, you write, and then you deploy.
Yeah.
So if you look at those 3 things, VSTS has you covered in those areas.
Absolutely.
It does, and it's also important to note that you can use lots of third-party integrations with VSTS. You don't have to use every element of VSTS to see the value. We work with Jenkins. We work with, the Selenium as a test tool. We work with lots of different, alternatives. So I just wanted to make the point that we have a very open system and lots of integrations in the Visual Studio Marketplace that are available to mix and match as you want.
That's an interesting thing you just brought up, the marketplace. What is that? How can people get into that, and where can you hook into the VSTS process? Why don't we start with you, Donovan?
Well, the marketplace is a collection of extensions that are written by individuals like myself, companies, partners of ours, that add value to your Visual Studio Team Services and Team Foundation servers. So they'll add tasks to your build and your release, they'll add widgets for your dashboard, they'll add hubs to the actual user interface. So there's lots of different extension points inside of VSTS, like context menus and all sorts of cool stuff. So a lot of the stuff that you see was out of the box, the majority of it, the lion's share of it, but you can always add to it. So Docker support is actually an extension. Hockey App was originally an extension that we basically add. This allows us to continue to add value even outside of bands, right? We can do that at any time that we want to. And they're extremely easy to write. All the tasks that we've written are open source, so everyone can go and see how we wrote all the tasks that are out of the box. And you can use those as templates to write your own. And if you know PowerShell or you know Node.js, you already know how to write a task.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and White Source was just announced as part of the Visual Studio launch. It launches an extension to VSTS that does open source code scanning. It's included as part of Visual Studio Enterprise. It's also available as an extension that you can purchase individually on the marketplace.
And so what does that do? Does that scan open source software for huge problems that could cause you problems?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of your actual build pipeline. So it's just a task in your build. So you build your code, you run this, and then it'll come back and say, you have all these GPL licenses that you want to get out of your code. These are the versions that you're using, and they have vulnerabilities, and what you have to do is upgrade to this version. I ran it actually against a Node project that I had. It was like, this is awesome. And I went back and I made the corrections, and now my code is all green.
Yeah.
Awesome or scary? I mean, if you run it the first time, right? Oh, man. Holy cow, everyone stop. Stop the factory.
Potentially.
That's the point.
But you want to know, like we talked about shifting left. We want to know sooner than later. We don't want to deploy that code with those vulnerabilities.
Right.
I wanted to know in my build that I have a problem that I can go correct now before it becomes a real big issue. You never want to fix a problem in production.
And I feel like I've done a disservice because you just mentioned here and now and in 2017. What are some of the cool things that came out that were announced today that people will start to see in the future?
Well, I think what we're seeing is making it easier and easier to deploy your apps anywhere. We announced a heck of a lot of support to deploy to Azure today. I think, whether you're using Docker or whether you're using Azure Web Apps, or we're just making it so that you don't even have to think about hooking up subscriptions. You just go and it's as easy as going and saying, this is the type of code I want and this is where I want it, and then it just all that undercover infrastructure is just wiring that all up.
Yeah, I'll be showing that later today. I have a session where I'm literally going to show you just how easy it is to set up a DevOps pipeline from nothing, because we just keep working at it to make it just easier and easier and easier to where no one's going to want me to do the demo anymore. It's like, okay, Donovan, it's like the 3-minute demo, right? You click this button, you click that button, you were done. And you need to be a little bit more impressive than that, but it's literally getting that easy. Like you import the code, you click a button, and you're deploying in Azure.
I think our mantra on the team has been, let's take Donovan and let's put him in the box. It's like, so we don't need, it's just that simple. Everybody can have all of Donovan's knowledge and just by using our tools.
And I failed to mention that you have the planning, and then you have the dev, and then you have the deploy. But then there's this other part of you need to know what's happening. I think I forgot that. Do we have coverage for that?
We do. So we have integration with Application Insights, which allows you to monitor your application when it's running in production. Because Lori mentioned value, and I also mentioned it in our definition. The only way that you can determine if you actually delivered value is to monitor the code while it's running in production. If I just automate the copying of files to a server, that's not necessarily delivering value. If no one's finding those files, if no one's using those features, we literally just copied files to a server. It's the monitoring of that allows us to determine that, yes, our users are finding it, they're getting value out of it, and that was valuable. And that's when Lori was talking about taking that information, putting it back in your product backlog and saying, okay, what we delivered really delivered value, and we can see the numbers that prove it. Let's do more of that. Because if what we just did not deliver value, we need to do less of that. And it's no longer a guess, it's no longer a gut feel. It's literally statistics telling us that was a good idea, do more of that. And that's where Application Insights ties in. And we have widgets that will bring that information onto our dashboards. We have tasks that will actually integrate with Application Insights so that you have this nice holistic view of your DevOps pipeline and the value that you're actually delivering. Yeah. And we do that inside of VSTS as well.
That's cool. Will it if there's a bug, will it automatically create work items and stuff?
There's several ways.
Let's just say it crashes.
What you can do there is you can get alerts, and then you can actually go there and create a bug from the dashboard inside of Azure. But if something happens like a bug, you have a bug in your code and your build fails or your test fails, we can actually generate a bug as soon as your CI fails. So the developer who broke broke the build gets haunted by that bug and doesn't let them forget about it. Oh, I broke the build, but I'll worry about it later. No, you're worried about it now because our system already created a bug against you because your code is the one that broke the build.
Fantastic. So I'd love to spend more time with you, maybe on a Channel 9 separate
Sure.
video where we build some goofy application. And then, because I know you do this all the time, and in fact, I've seen some of your talks where you have people pick the platform. And what is it? It's like a slider.
Spinner,
the platform.
yeah.
They chose the language, they chose what computer I use, and they chose where, if we chose the Docker or to app service. And there was a voting app going on during my session. And when I got to the demo slide, I went to the results and said, okay, and I put my Mac on stage then, and I wired it up, and I did the demo that they asked for. So any language, any platform, and I proved it on stage.
Thanks so much. This has been awesome. We'll have to follow up with you and to talk about these things. Just to let you know, following up, we have tons of really good demos coming up. Coming up next, we have Casey Uhlenhout and Mads Torgersen talking about C# productivity right after the break. We'll see you.